What's going on, guys? I'm Zach from the Lumios Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about, well, a little journey I had, and that is through Paldea. I was traveling across Paldea, and I'm sure you've noticed them too. There are kind of these giant freaking towers all over the place. There's also some ruins that you'll see throughout the region, and I noticed that they were all identical, which is a little strange, to be honest. So I went to the history class in Mesagoza, and that is where I learned that Paldea was actually once multiple nations. It says that about 200 years ago, the Paldean Empire and its surrounding nations became one country, and that is the Paldea we know today. So that means at one point, Paldea wasn't all just Paldea. And if that's the case, then why were there multiple watchtowers, multiple of these ruins that were, are identical all across the region? Because hypothetically, they would be in different countries. So it's weird that, one that's in this ancient civilization looks, or not ancient, but rather historical civilization, looks identical to a completely different one. And, well, I think I found some solutions, and it's kind of cool and kind of scary, depending on what the result is. So, first, I think that what could happen is we are looking at a classic case of imperialism. So, sometimes a country will set up a base in a country that is not its. So, like, for example, and I'm not getting politically here, I'm not going to talk about what I think is right and what I think is wrong, but I live in the United States. The United States has military bases in the United States. They also have military bases in countries that are not the United States. So maybe this is something that happened in Paldea. Maybe the Paldean Empire, had an enemy, and it needed to set up bases all across what is modern-day Paldea to, potentially defend itself from a country that maybe it was not so great with its relationship with. Now, this is pretty common stuff that we see in the real world. Probably what happens, the Paldean Empire approached these neighboring nations and basically told them, hey, you let me set up camp here, you let me set up these watchtowers, so we can, keep a lookout for this enemy nation. Then we will also protect you from this enemy nation. So while these countries are not under the Paldean Empire, they allow the Paldean Empire to come in, set up watchtowers, on the promise that they would be defended from any oncoming invasion or attack. Or it could be that the Paldean Empire, being an empire, simply marched into these countries and kind of just told them, hey, we're going to put up watchtowers here, and you're going to let us, or we're going to go to war with you, and you're not going to win. Because that was also another practice of empires, is what we in the industry refer to as bullying. So that is certainly possible, but my question is, what could Paldea have been fearing? What was the Paldean Emperor fearing? What was it? And, another point to make on all of this is that we also know the Paldean Emperor was given the 4 treasures of ruins, ended up locking them all away, but he again locked them in 4 corners of modern-day Paldea, implying he locked them in nations that maybe weren't even his own. So that's very interesting, but I'm wondering what he was fearing, and I think it was Kalos. I had a whole theory on how I think that Paldea and Kalos were at war. The Great War that we heard about in the Kalos region was indeed against Paldea, and I think that this is another point for that. I think that's certainly possible. I mean, you have to think, if Paldea was at war with Kalos, well, that means that Paldea was on the receiving end of the ultimate weapons blast, which would not be fun, to put it lightly. So it makes sense that Paldea would really want to make sure that they don't allow Kalos to go to war with them again, that they're ready for them. So basically what I'm proposing is Paldea and Kalos are at war. Kalos fires the ultimate weapon onto Paldea. Paldea then spreads watchtowers all over its peninsula, including in places that are not its own territory, preparing for any future Kalos attack. I mean, they hit us with a nuke once, why wouldn't they do it again, is Paldea's logic here. So that's very interesting to me that these watchtowers are all over the place, and I've always thought from the beginning they would get some story. They didn't, and so this is me just kind of adding story to them, and I think it does make a lot of sense. Pokemon does like to take their inspirations and allow them to mirror kind of real world lore or history or whatever it may be, and this would line up. In the past, France and Spain have fought many wars against each other and were always sort of rivals, so it makes sense that we'd see something here with Kalos and Paldea as well. Now, another solution to all of this is that maybe, and this is the easier solution, but because it's the easier solution, it's the solution I like the least, and that is that maybe Paldea is the Paldean Empire, and when Miss Reifert refers to its neighboring countries, she's actually referring to DLC areas we haven't seen yet. So, for example, when we first got Sword and Shield released to us, we saw the Galar region. Great, there's the Galar region. Well then, DLC got announced for Sword and Shield, and it was stated that there was this other area called the Isle of Armor, and another area called the Crown Tundra. While these are separate areas, Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, they are still a part of Galar. They are still a part of the nation of the Galar region. So maybe what Miss Reifert is referring to is that Paldea, that we see so far in the base game of Scarlet and Violet, was the Paldean Empire. This would explain why there's watchtowers all over the region that are identical, because it was all the same empire. But we're going to get DLC for maybe some islands, say, based off the Balearic Islands or the Azores Islands. And we're going to get an area in the mountains based off of, say, Andorra, which, while not part of Spain, is it would be in the games part of the Paldean region. Even if they call it the, the Crystal Isles and the... Geez, I really don't know. This is kind of on the spot. The Sky Mountains. Well, then they would still be, even though they have that own name, they would still be a part of Paldea. So maybe that's what Miss Reifert is referring to there. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that this is a potential tease to some kind of giant war, whether it be with Kalos or someone else in Paldea's history? Because I think it's interesting that if that's the case, that wasn't brought up in the history class. Or do you think that this is simply a tease that there is more to Paldea than currently meets our eye? Be sure to let me know that in the comments below. Be sure to also like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you stay up to date on all of our future Scarlet and Violet videos. I'm loving that this game's given us a lot of history and culture to this region, and I am so excited to do dives into it and ask these questions and try to get some answers to these questions. So again, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Until next time, I will see all of you later.